What is going on, beautiful people? Welcome back to another amazing and impactful episode of the True Health Forever podcast, where we show the best life through the lens of holistic health. See, slow and deliberate movements just work out. I'm your host, Devon Truvel, creator of Black Wall Street, the board game. And as usual, I have the naturally beautiful, the smiling, the curl-rific, can't wait to go on vacation to
Always.
Queen herself. How you doing? Introduce yourself to people.
What's up, people? My name is Sinclair, aka
The Health Nerd.
And if you're wondering what that was about, we are taking a trip to somewhere that I don't know.
Yeah.
Now, if you've listened to previous podcasts, you know that I'm the trip planner. He literally doesn't know where we are half the time. I always like to tell the honeymoon story when we were in Italy we were in Spain, and he got off the ship and was like, Paris. I was like, sir, first of all, Paris is not on the coast.
Still blessed though.
But anyways, yes, we are going on a trip. I don't know where we're going. He has completely planned this trip. I won't find out until the day of at the airport. So I am looking forward to it. But yes, mystery trip to some place with a beach. That's all I know.
Indeed. But did you even introduce yourself?
I did.
You did? All right, cool. So let's. All right.
Hi, I'm vacation.
That's my name. But first off, before we get into the episode, happy Juneteenth.
Yes.
If you are watching this live, it is June 19th, 2021, a celebration of the late notification of freedom to enslaved Africans in Texas specifically. I like to think, specifically for this year, but also moving forward, a little bit of a renewed focus on financial freedom, economic freedom within the Black community and communities of color, because a little bit of history. Well, I'm not going to get too deep into it, but a little bit of history, right? So when the enslaved folks were freed, they still couldn't get like a regular job. Right? Like you literally were freed from your quote unquote master, but then now that master became your supervisor. And now you still had to check in to work for them. You now had to pay rent for the house that you lived on on their land.
I did not know.
Yes, they were charging people, and to use all the tools that you needed to. Y'all know I don't grow stuff, but to use all the tools that you needed to grow and do the work of the plantation, you needed to purchase or rent those tools, which before were free when you were a slave, but now that you're a worker, they're going to charge you for it. So it basically just put people in debt.
But it's interesting because that's not even how it works in a real job. Like if I hired you to mow my lawn, I mean, do I?
But you have to have the tools to do the job.
That's true.
Right. So it's interesting how, yes, people were freed, but they weren't financially free. And if you're not financially free and you have to do certain things that maybe you don't want to do to, I guess, pay for your own freedom, to pay for your quality of life, are you really free? Like, was that really freedom right then? So in my perspective of history, and definitely interested in other perspectives, I feel like financial and economic freedom should be the focus of our community these days. That way we can have true freedom that our ancestors have been trying to fight for years, right?
Let's go.
But that's not even a theme, right? That's not what we're talking about today. At all. That's not what we're talking about today. What we're talking about today, Queen, is sugar. Sugar, sugar, how you get so fly? Sugar, sugar, how you get so fly? Sugar, sugar, I'm gonna say goodbye. All right, so Queen, a little remix. Queen, why are we talking about sugar today? Why is this topic important? No, it has nothing to do with Juneteenth, unfortunately. I mean, health, kind of, but Queen, why are we talking about sugar?
I'm not gonna lie, I don't know what prompted me to say I wanted to talk about sugar this week.
You just felt it in your soul. Right?
It's one of those things of like, I don't know if I'll call it the universe, God. It was just like, I think I was literally just getting ready one morning, and it was like, we should talk about sugar on the podcast. Like literally, that's how it happened. I wish I had a deeper story, but the universe just said, this is what you should talk about this week.
Gotcha.
And we hadn't done like a deep, like physical health podcast in a while. I feel like we focus holistically, so we talk about a lot of different things. We talk about money. We obviously, if this is your first episode, we got a lot of episodes.
Go on. This is 64?
60, yeah, 64.
I've been here. It's 64, so yeah, definitely go ahead and go back through the catalog. But go ahead, Queen.
Maybe it was just my, like, I had an itch to, like, be nerdy. You know, these are the podcasts where I get to nerd out a little bit, and I feel like I haven't nerded out in a while. So,
gotcha.
But yeah, normally I'm like prompted by like a podcast episode or something. Like that wasn't the case here. It was just like,
sure.
Yep. I just accepted the calling that came. You know. But sugar. Why it is important to discuss is that it is an epidemic right now, unfortunately, and it's one of those like hidden epidemics where it is talked about in some circles, but the sugar consumption of the average American right now is way over where it should be. So, to give you some numbers.
Oh, so you see rolling out the nerd stats. Here we go. y'all in trouble this episode.
So, again, this is just why it's important, right? Let me give you just some numbers to round it out here. The average recommended amount of added sugar that we consume is 24 grams for women and 36 grams for men. The average person is consuming 77 grams every single day. Way over the limit. So it's very important for us to talk about if you are chronically over consuming sugar, that's going to have some side effects. It's going to have a lot of effects to your body, right? And we'll get into that on how that actually happens. But that's why it's so important is that I don't know if the average person realizes that it's just normal, right? Everything that we eat has added sugar. It's been sweetened to accommodate for our palates that expect this sweetness with every single meal. And unfortunately, it's kind of led to this epidemic that we're seeing right now with obesity and just with all of the effects that come with over consuming sugar. So I won't dive in too much. I tend to do that. So
well done. I was wondering when I needed to double dutch in here to stop you from diving into it. But that is why we're talking about it. And without further ado, let's get into the episode. Get it. All right, we're back. Oh, so Queen, you already were kind of diving into the importance of it, but let's rewind. Thank you. Well, right on cue. I appreciate you. Let's rewind and let's talk about what is sugar, right? Not to do 100% baby steps, but we do want to make sure we're starting at the ground level just to put everyone on the same path. So, Queen, what is sugar?
And I think that why it's important to define it is just so that we make sure we're speaking the same language, right? There's so many different, sugar is a very broad word that can mean a lot of different things. So sugar to your body is basically, it is a sweet tasting, soluble carbohydrate. So those are a couple different things involved in that. Sweet tasting, that's what makes it addictive, right? Is that sweetness that your tongue recognizes. It is soluble, which means it dissolves into your blood and all these things. And it dissolves into a lot of foods, right? It dissolves into water, which is why it is in everything, because it can so easily be added and dissolved into things without you seeing it, right? That's the important part. This wasn't even going to be a tangent, but it'll be a small one. It's hidden, right? I mean, that's why one of the suggestions that we'll talk about later on is reading labels, because you don't see it. Let me tell you, you don't see it. That's on purpose. They don't want you to see, the amount of sugar that you're drinking. It just focus on it tasting good. That's all it's important. Right. And then the fact that it is a carbohydrate. So that's important because of how your body metabolizes it, which we'll talk about in a second as well. But when you think about different types of sugars, there's a million different types of sugars that we can talk about. But
no, let's not do that.
No, we don't want to do that.
Let's not talk about a million on this 45-minute podcast right here.
I just want to focus on, and we're going to break down just three of the different kinds that you've probably heard. And that's glucose, fructose, and sucrose. So glucose is kind of like it's the simplest form. It's what sugar is broken down to. So that's what it is in your blood, right? It breaks it all the way down, and once it gets to glucose, it can't break it down any further. That's the glucose molecule, and that's what goes into your blood.
Simple sugar.
Simple sugar, exactly. Fructose. Oh, the other thing about glucose is that it is the quickest form of energy. So in terms of carbohydrates, that's your body's preferred source of energy because it goes immediately into your blood, and your body can. Well, there's some other things that happen, which again we'll talk about, but it makes it quick to be able to use that energy to digest food, to walk around, to breathe, and just do everything that your body needs to do. Fructose is the fruit sugar, right? It's literally kind of in the name. But fructose is the fruit sugar. I already said that. There's something else that I wanted to say that I'm going to check my notes for so I don't forget it.
Go ahead and do that, Queen. But we talked about this in another podcast, and we're probably going to get to this eventually. This is really just me stalling. But how the energy or the gas that you put into your body kind of has a direct correlation to the results that you get.
Yes.
So to the glucose being the simplest sugar, the quickest burning, I feel like sometimes you may think, oh, that's good, right? I get energy quick. Not necessarily, right? Exactly. The quicker you go up, the quicker you may come down. So, but Queen, get right back into it.
So fructose, the other thing I want to mention about fructose is it actually has to be converted to glucose in the body. So that's why it takes a little bit longer. That's why if you eat an apple, you're not necessarily going to instantly feel that. Whereas if you eat a candy bar, you're probably going to feel that right away. So the apple has to be converted, right? That fructose has to be converted to the glucose before it can use that energy. So it's a little bit more of a slow burn.
Gotcha.
And then sucrose. Sucrose is basically table sugar, right? That's kind of the scientific name for table sugar. And it's actually a mixture of fructose and glucose. So has the same properties as the other ones because they're kind of combined to make sucrose. And that's what you're hopefully... This is what most people are adding to their coffee. That's what they have in a little jar in their kitchen. So that's sucrose.
Gotcha. So, question for you.
Yes.
And if you don't have that answer right now, all good. But I feel like in my head, naturally, it's seeming that it would be better for a complex sugar like sucrose to be broken down into glucose because it takes energy to break things down. That would be my assumption. Is that assumption somewhat correct, or is it completely left field that sucrose is way up here, so it takes more energy to convert it to glucose, which means maybe your body's working more, maybe you're using more calories, so that would be a quote unquote good thing. I'm not saying that's correct. I'm just posing that question to you, Queen.
In the paradigm of wanting to burn calories, sure, maybe. But in the paradigm of digestion being a very taxing energy process for your body, not necessarily.
So you're causing your body extra stress.
Yes, extra stress, extra work. Digestive is already the most taxing thing that our bodies have to do. So now you're kind of adding another step to it. Now you got to take the Lego apart before you can put them away.
Shout out to Legos. We out here, right? All right, love it. So Queen, out of those three sugars, and I'm sure you're going to get to this next, but which one would you feel like we should be trying to get more of or trying to get less of?
I knew you were going to ask that question, which is why I wanted to make this next point. None of them are inherently bad because they all can be found in natural sources. They all are found in fruits and in vegetables, right? So that means none of them are inherently bad. But at the same time, all of them can be dangerous if consumed in excess. That's pretty much that's standard, right? So glucose, that's the simplest form. It's easy, quick energy. But yes, excess glucose, not good to be in your blood, right? Because excess glucose, more work for insulin, which we'll talk about in a second, and you don't want extra glucose just lying in your blood. That's how you get high blood sugar.
Doesn't it also make your blood acidic? I don't know if we were talking about that later on, but I heard the more sugar, specifically soda, that you're consuming, now you have more sugar, more acid in your body, in your blood as well.
I don't know for sure, but that would make sense because you want to be more alkaline, slightly more alkaline, because that's the state of your body that is able to fight off diseases. So that would make sense.
Shout out to Dr. Sebi. That's where I got that from.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
then that makes total sense.
Yeah.
So yes, I did just want to drive the point that none of them are inherently bad, but all of them, fructose, again, it has to be converted to glucose. So the reason why I say not exactly is because that work is being done by your liver. So you're going to overload your liver if you're eating fructose in excess, right? So that's why it's like, sure, maybe you're using more your energy, but you don't want to overload your liver because then it's not going to be able to do its job for as long, right? And then sucrose is the same thing because it's made of glucose and fructose. You have the same problems. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay.
It does. The next point, and I think you were kind of already covering it, but why excess sugar is bad? Do you feel like you covered all those?
I did want to cover one more part, and that's just the natural sugar versus added sugar. We're talking, before we move into how it affects the body, I want to talk about those two. And that's just because the added sugar is really what we want to pay more attention to because it is hidden in everything. There is natural sugar. And I'm saying this because there was a conversation with an old coworker at my job, and they were saying that day they had eaten a roast beef sandwich, peanut butter jelly sandwich, and an apple. And they were struggling with high blood pressure. That's a whole nother conversation. But they were like, man, yeah. And I probably have eaten a lot of sugar, so I should probably cut out the apple. And I was like, oh, no. It's the one thing you should not be cutting out because that's the one form of natural sugar you have. The bread from your sandwich is about to be converted to sugar. The peanut butter, the jelly, the other bread from that's all of that is also about to be converted to sugar in your body.
Sprout bread.
No.
I'm positive it was
the white refined bread. And then you're thinking about cutting out the apple because you're concerned about the sugar consumption. So that's why I want to just bring up the point of added sugar is the biggest problem. Natural sugar is okay to consume. You still don't want to overdo it, but I don't think the average person is over consuming natural sugars. Put it that way. So if you're not a person who is, getting your 5 servings of fruits and vegetables, then I wouldn't even necessarily worry about cutting out fruit. Don't worry about that. Eat your fruit because it has good things, other nutrients and things that you need.
Right.
So we're talking about, just real quick to round this out, is when we're talking about added sugar versus natural sugar, we're talking about a fresh orange or even fresh orange juice versus Sunny D. Right.
Sunny D?
I'm sorry.
That don't count?
Okay. Right. So they're both sweet. They're both sweet, right? But you've got the natural sugars, you got the sweetness from the natural orange from the ground. It already has, fructose. It's probably got a mixture of all 3 of those sugars in it that you're going to get from the orange juice. If you squeeze that, you have your natural sugar. That's going to provide a lot of benefits, right? Versus Sunny D, which maybe mimics, the try to mimic the sugars and the flavors, but they're added. So just wanted to drive home that point of
or grape juice versus purple drink.
Purple drink. I want that purple stuff.
I want that purple stuff.
Exactly.
And one more example is, I feel like growing up, no shade to parents or Granny, shout out to Granny, much love. But we did add sugar to a lot of food. When I'm thinking of cream of wheat for breakfast, right? We would put some sugar, put some butter, put some evaporated milk in there, and it tastes phenomenal. Even rice. Sometimes we would have butter sugar rice, where it's we're having some curry, we're having some what else? Thai food. It can be any type of chicken dish or saucy dish. And then on the side, we would not just have regular white rice. We'd add some butter to that rice.
Of course.
We would add some sugar to that rice, right? And it tasted phenomenal. But I can only imagine how many other families are doing that same thing, adding the extra sugar to it. Not saying that you need to completely change your diet, but we're adding sugar to things that don't necessarily need sugar to taste good. They already taste good.
Right.
Yep. Switching over.
Yep.
What's next, Queen? What are we talking about?
So talking about why excess sugar is dangerous for you. And I want to start that conversation with how your body actually metabolizes sugar. So I think we have a graphic. If we could throw that up, so it'll help kind of guide the conversation. But basically, once you consume sugar, your body is going to break it down into glucose. So that's what I mentioned. It's a simple sugar. That's what it the smallest basically form that it will break down the sugar to. So you've got your glucose molecules, they're in your body. Once it gets down to the small intestine, that's when it actually enters your bloodstream.
Okay. And is that for every nutrient, or is that sugar specifically?
We're talking about sugar breaking down into glucose.
Gotcha.
So I'm talking about a glucose molecule. Once you've consumed whatever it is, right? It can be basically carbohydrates. Okay. Consuming carbohydrates, gotcha. Right? Anytime you're consuming carbohydrates, including sugar, this is what's happening to your body. So you consume it, it breaks it down to glucose. The glucose gets to your small intestine, and that's how it enters your bloodstream. Mm-hmm. So now we're at the point where you've got glucose in your bloodstream.
It's in me.
Okay, so you have a spike in your blood sugar temporarily. Mm-hmm. That triggers the pancreas to release insulin.
Okay.
We've talked about this in previous podcasts, but hopefully the graphic helps it a little bit. So your pancreas releases insulin. Insulin's job is
it
is also right on the screen.
Is to take the sugar cells or take the glucose cells and deliver them to the cells that need the energy.
Yes, to cells in general. Yeah. But yes. Correct. Good job.
Yeah, honestly, if this graphic wasn't up, y'all, I would have pulled something from the ether, and sometimes I pull it out and it works out. But let's get back to
it. So yes, it triggers the pancreas to release insulin. Insulin's job is to take those glucose molecules and deliver them to the cells. That's why we got the little delivery truck there, all right? Yes. And then once that happens, right? Ding dong. Here's the glucose.
You said ding dong, knocking on the door. I'm not going to bypass that part. For the people listening on this podcast, she said ding dong, knocking on the door, which gave me and this has nothing to do with sugar, but this is a natural podcast. This took me back to freshman year when you were
knock-proof.
The knock-proof. Are these knock-proof windows? No, Sinclair. No. I know you're brilliant, but no, this is not.
Now you got to tell the backstory.
Oh, God. Well, the backstory. And we were at UC Davis. This was freshman year. And I think it was Stephanie. I think we were trying to visit Stephanie's dorm or somebody's dorm inside of Tesoro. And she was like right inside of the door. And you were knocking on the window and she wasn't turning. And it didn't occur to you that she was ignoring you. It didn't occur to you that she had, earphones in or whatever. It was just like, are these knock-proof windows?
I just feel like those has to exist somewhere.
I'm sure they do. But all right, podcast. Let's get back into it. We're talking about sugar, and you knocked on the door. The sound said ding dong. Who answered?
Okay. So, insulin delivers glucose to the cells. Uh-huh. The cells are going to use some of that glucose for immediate energy. So again, you have a lot of things happening in your body at any given time. So it's going to use some of that for immediate energy, but the rest is going to get stored. And there are different ways that it gets stored. That's a whole nother podcast that I won't go into, but we'll simplify it and basically say that it either gets stored in your muscles as glycogen or as fat. Okay. But one, you have to have muscles for it to store, right? So if for folks like for you, it's percentage of muscle.
Oh, thank you.
But for folks who don't have as high of a percentage of muscle, it might not be doing that. It may lean more towards the fat, right? So that being said, if you're over consuming glucose and if you're living more of a sedentary lifestyle where you're not actually using that glucose, it's all going to be stored, right? And then the average, and I'm talking more about the average American diet or the average American lifestyle, where you're also eating throughout the day. So your body never has a chance to utilize that stored glucose. So I've stored it all away, right? The idea of storing something is so that you can use it later on, right? You're storing it for a rainy day when you might not have food. The problem is we never don't have food.
So most of us are blessed to never.
Yes, but again, it's talking about the standard American lifestyle, which is that we are eating, whether it's good quality food or not, right? We're eating a lot throughout the day. So your body, in the next hour when you eat a snack, the same process is going to happen because you haven't even allowed yourself to deplete the glucose you ate an hour ago, and now you're eating more. So now it's going to do the same thing. Insulin's going to release. It's going to gather all the glucose. It's going to bring it to your cells. If you're moving, it's going to utilize a lot of that to, to power your body. But if you're not, then a lot of it's going to get stored. So that kind of brings it into why that's dangerous, is that you will end up just getting a lot of extra stored glucose in the form of fat. Okay. Gotcha. And that's what leads to obesity, which leads to all of the other health epidemics that we're seeing right now. The autoimmune diseases, the heart disease, high blood pressure, all of these things kind of go along with this our consequences of this.
So I have two kind of I don't know if they're called action items or just thoughts that came to my head as you were walking through the process that I think will be beneficial. Number one, I feel like it's interesting that the more muscle you have, the more glycogen your body uses, or at least instead of storing the sugar, it goes to the muscles, because the muscles consume and need the most energy. So, and then it's like, oh, let's put the gas right where it's going to get used the fastest. So it behooves you to build muscle.
Yes.
Right. And I'm not saying everyone needs to be like Arnold and get out here and building muscles. But I'm saying, like, it does behoove you to do some toning, some weight building, some resistance. You can even build muscle doing yoga. But if you have 1 day, 2 days a week where you're focused on intentionally building some type of muscle, that can help you in your sugar consumption and sugar digestion.
Yes.
Number two, and the Queen talks about this very often, but fasting. Right? So the fact that your body is storing this energy, but you keep putting gas in the tank, your gas is overflowing, right, with energy. So your body never has a chance to use what's in storage. So fast, whether it's a intermittent fasting for just the one meal, or the Queen's being ambitious next week, and she started technically this week doing 24-hour fast, but that gives your body the chance to be like, you know what, where's some energy? Let me go find some energy inside this body. That way you start to lose some of that excess fat that you may have.
Yep. And I think that it's more than just I feel like some folks simplify it a little bit too much to the cosmetics. And that's why I really did want to drive home the point that it causes other things in your body that are more than just the confidence issue, right? It's more than just the societal issues of, being overweight. That it's more than that. There are physical things. It starts to build fat tissue around your organs, right? That's called visceral. I'm like, I know this.
Visceral fat.
Visceral fat. So, right. So there are different kinds of fat. The subcutaneous fat is like the stuff you can pinch. So like this is the subcutaneous. This is the subcutaneous fat. Don't do that. Don't do that. You ain't got no fat. That face.
Right, when you got in trouble.
Right. But yeah, so that's subcutaneous fat. Visceral fat also starts to form, and that's the fat that's around your organs, okay? And fat building around your organs prevents it from being able to do its job efficiently. It's just extra stuff in the way. Okay, so those are things that start to happen when your body starts to hold on to that excess fat.
Yes. All right, shifting gears, you ready to go into, I believe, how to actually manage how much sugar you're consuming?
Let's do it.
Right, and we're not saying completely eliminate sugar, go on a no sugar diet. Is that keto? I don't even know what the diets are called. But there are things that you can do to just be intentional about the sugar that you're consuming. So I believe we do also have a graphic for this. So go ahead and educate the folks with the graphic. And Queen, do your thing. How can we start managing our sugar better?
Yeah. So one thing is reading food labels. I think a lot of folks, I don't know if they're, it's just not necessarily something naturally we do. It's not something we're taught to do, right? The food label is there in case you want to see it, but it's there for a reason. Look at it, right? Know what you're consuming. And again, what I mentioned is sugar is so easy because it is soluble. It can dissolve in pretty much anything. It's so easy to be hidden in the foods that we love the most. Okay, so it's hidden in your condiments. It's hidden your ketchup. Right? You'd be surprised how much added sugar is in ketchup from tomatoes that are already sweet. Right. Ketchup, your salad dressings, like imagine, right? You're trying to eat healthy. You're having a delicious salad and then you're pouring sugar on it. Okay. So be careful with your salad dressings, your pasta sauces, right? Your marinaras, right? There's going to be a lot of added sugar and
look, ragu. They be pouring it in, y'all. I'm just saying. I looked at it fine. I was like, dang it, no more ragu.
But another thing that I wanted to bring up is that I looked this up yesterday. I don't know if this is all labels, but I did notice on a few of the labels that I looked up that it actually categorizes, when you look at sugar, it actually now categorizes it as added. So how much of it, it says the total amount of sugar, and below that it'll say how much of it is added. Because again, if you're eating like tomato sauce, there is going to be natural sugar in that, because tomatoes have sugar. They're technically a fruit, right? They have sugar in it, but we want to know how much of it is added. I'm not as worried about the natural sugars. My body will deal with those, right? How much of it is added? How much are we adding just so that it tastes good? Okay. So be careful for that. And then, yeah.
Are you still on labels? Or are you about to?
Yes, no, I'm still on that.
Okay. I have a thing on labels, so I'll wait.
Okay. And then I just wanted to talk about other things that sugar is added into. The things that we know about, but all of your candies, your cereals, your ice creams, your cakes, obviously there's a lot of added sugar. We don't always know how much. It can be daunting to actually look at it when you look at it. And I feel like it's again, it's not anything to necessarily feel ashamed about, because this is a society we've lived in. It's not even something that we're necessarily choosing to do, but it's to start making yourself aware of like, wow, this one cupcake has this amount. The very last thing that I want to talk about in terms of the labels.
I believe you.
Actually, it's not even in this category. I'll talk about it later. What did you want to talk about?
All right, two quick things. One, people fought to get those labels on them.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So it wasn't something that the companies were like, you know what? We want to let you know exactly what's in this. We want to let you know.
I promise you they don't. No. I promise you they don't.
No, they don't. So someone fought, or generations fought for the information to be there. So it's up to us to take advantage of the information that's now there. Yes. Right? So definitely read the labels. Number 2 one was, I had it. Reading the labels. Yeah, sometimes I get it from just looking deep into your amazing galactic royal eyes. But, this is not one of those.
Darn.
It's not one of those times. You can go to the next one. Maybe I'll get it later. Okay. Oh, I got it. Thank you, Queen. Boom. So the sugar that they put on there, and you got to be careful. Don't just look at the amount of sugar, but look at the serving size. Right? Because
that's a great point.
It was. Thank you. I'm glad the universe sent it back to me.
Yes.
But it will say like, 35 grams per serving. And then you look at the serving, and the serving's like a half a can of soda, or the serving's like 5 tablespoons of the ragu. But we usually eat more than one serving, right? And I feel like it's just what it is. I've tried to eat a serving, and it's just like I've tried to eat one serving, and it's like, I'm hungry. I'm not gonna do this. So if you're gonna eat 1 or 2 servings, again, the sugar, the salt, the sodium, like all that stuff becomes even more valuable to look at the what's it called? Look at the serving size and be intentional about what you're adding to it. Right. Because we'll use ragu and still add more sugar.
Yes, to the sauce.
Right.
Yep. Cool. No, you bring up a great point, because like when you think about a bottle of soda, right? You're like, you look at it, that's 24 grams or whatever. And you're like, okay, that's not bad. In the bottle, which is 2 servings, right? Which I feel like, the average person's drinking a whole bottle.
Right, you're not going to
but double that, and that's how much you're actually consuming. So that's a great point. Thank you for bringing that back. All right, can we bring the graphic up so I can know what is next? Find a healthy alternative. Let me bring out my notes, because I know what the question is. What's a healthy alternative? I'm glad you asked. Well,
don't act like you know me, all right? Don't act like you know what I'm about to ask.
So, first of all, it is probably a good idea for the average American to decrease even the need to have something sweet every meal, right? However, realistically, start your health journey where you're at, which is, I like sweet things. Perfectly fine. Just find a better alternative, because the refined white sugar, the sucrose, is very refined, right? I mentioned it is a mixture of glucose and fructose. So they have to combine that. They have to make it's bleached white. Like, how do you think that happens? Right? So like there's a lot of things that happen to it before it gets to that form, which means your body has to do a lot of things to kind of recognize it. And it really doesn't recognize it because it's not in a natural form of sugar. But that sugar peaks your blood sugar much higher than a lot of the other forms of sugars. So what I recommend is that you find a sweetener that is lower glycemic. And all that means is that it does not spike your blood sugar as high at one time. It gives you more of a slow burn. And basically that just means that rather than releasing all of my insulin soldiers at once, I can let a couple out, right? Okay. All right. Looks like we got a little bit of sugar. All right. 3 of y'all go see what's going on. Okay. Nope. It's still coming in. 3 out. Let's go. Rather than like, oh, go, it's war.
Might be the Office episode
exactly.
where the on fire.
Exactly. So, some of these more natural forms, and again, some of these are lower glycemic. I'll get to those in a second. These ones are still going to spike your blood sugar, but not as high. And again, because it's from natural sources, your body recognizes it more. Okay, so honey, that's a good one, and honey, the other great thing about these alternatives is because they're natural, they have other nutrients, they have other things in them that help your body. Whereas table sugar, there's no nutritional benefit to table sugar. It's only bad. Okay, there's nothing good. It doesn't supply any nutrients. It's only bad. There's nothing good about it.
Please don't just get any honey. I don't want to fall into a rabbit hole, but make sure it is real, raw, organic honey and not just a bottle that looks like a bear that says honey on it. And it's really just a whole bunch of sugar.
Yes, because in order to call honey, I believe it only needs to be like 51% honey to call it honey. So please pay attention to look at the label, look at the ingredients. If it says anything else than honey, don't get it because they can add high fructose corn syrup, a whole bunch of colorings and things like that to make it look like honey so that you will buy it. Only pure honey. Maple syrup, another one, same exact thing. You want that, they got the little grades on it. You want the pure maple syrup because the same thing happens. They can add high fructose corn syrup, things that are cheap so that they get more out of it. There are numbers to this. There are reasons for this, right? They get more out of the yield. They can sell more bottles. It's cheaper to make, all that fun stuff. And you like it more. Coconut sugar. Coconut is a sugar made literally from coconuts because coconuts are sweet naturally, right? So they've extracted the sugar from that. It's brown naturally. Excuse me. That is another good alternative. It's not quite as sweet. It's got a kind of a different, sweeter taste. It's almost kind of like earthier.
I think coconut sugar is probably one of my favorites because I like the coconut flavor and it does add a little bit of coconut flavor as well. So if you're making some cupcakes, we made cinnamon rolls the other day. I don't know if you made it with coconut sugar, but it was with a whole bunch of alternate sugaries or sweeteners and it was good. But yeah, personally, coconut sugar. So Queen, next time you gonna
I did use it in the cinnamon mixture. I used it instead of brown sugar. Yep. So that'd be a good alternative for brown sugar. There are alternative sweeteners made out of fruits. So dates. I love dates. I like making. Yes, I do add them to smoothies. So sometimes I'll make like a smoothie that's got like ginger and some berries that aren't quite as sweet. If you add just like a half a date, they're very powerful. So you don't even need the full thing. Just add a little piece of date in there, and it kind of ups the sugar content again. But dates are low glycemic, so even though it tastes sweet and it's satisfying my my little sweet tooth and what my body is looking for, or what my taste buds are looking for, it doesn't spike the blood sugar as much. Okay, my new what's in our cabinet right now?
Fruit.
Monk fruit.
At this point, I'm just staying consistent.
Monk fruit is another one. It is made from a fruit, and it is extremely low glycemic. I actually think it has a glycemic index of 0. I want to say I looked this up, and I was like, look it up for yourself. Don't take my word for it. But look up the glycemic index of monk fruit. It is just as sweet, and you add it, and you don't have that spike. Some other options. Another favorite of mine that I actually use for my coffee is stevia. Stevia. I feel like I said that weird. Stevia.
I wasn't gonna say nothing because I don't use it, so I was like, It was one of those like Porsche type of situations.
Gotcha. Stevia is a good one because it is natural. It's made from a leaf, so it's actually extracted from the stevia leaf. And you can get it in the form of like drops. So that's what I have. And like I use 3 drops for my coffee in the morning. Like it's very low calorie and low glycemic, and it does not take much because it's like some crazy amount, like 100 times. That's just a random number, but like X amount of times sweeter than regular table sugar. So it's not a 1-to-1 like comparison. You need like a couple drops to sweeten like a bowl or a pot of something. But that's another good one. I wanted to talk about, because I feel like people are going to have this question because we mentioned honey and maple syrup, and I feel like a natural one that people go to after that is agave nectar. So I wanted to talk about this one and why I didn't mention it, or why I'm not mentioning it necessarily as a healthy alternative. And that is because although it is more natural, it is very high in fructose. So excess of that, again, just overloads. If you're using it as a replacement for sugar, again, in excess is going to overload your liver, because your liver is the one that has to take all of that fructose and convert it into glucose. And so again, if you're going to use that as a replacement for years and years and years, you might overload your liver, and that can lead to other problems. So that one's a touchy one in the health world on some people thinking that it's good and some people not. I'm somewhere in the middle, but I wouldn't necessarily put it on the list of healthy alternatives when there are a lot of other options, personally. And I cannot leave this section without pointing this. And this is something that I'm so passionate about that I've told all my family members, y'all need to stop using artificial sweeteners. Okay. The reason why, there are studies that have been done. And when I mean artificial sweeteners, I'm talking about all of the ones we've talked about right now are natural forms of sugar. But there are
sweet and low.
Yes, sweet and low. The Splendas. Do not consume those at all, right? And they're hidden.
You see how the knock came 30 minutes later?
You don't be talking about my sounds, okay?
The knock came later. My bad. Not stevia. Sweet and low.
Sweet and low. Your Splendas. Anything like the diet sodas. Anything that has diet on it probably has artificial sweeteners. So please look at what it's sweetened with. It's still going to be sweet. So look at what they're sweetening it. If they're sweetening it with stevia and with these other good things, go for it. But if it's sweetened with aspartame, if it's sweetened with these other
aspartame don't sound like nothing you want to put your butt.
And you don't, because there have been studies after studies showing the link between an increased risk of Alzheimer's and dementia with consuming these artificial sweeteners. And my hypothesis that it has something to do with the fact that again, it is not in a natural form of sugar, and your body just doesn't recognize it. It's like, what is this? I'm tasting sweetness, but it's not sugar. It's not spiking. It's some chemical compound that I don't even know, and I feel like it confuses your brain. Very scientific response. But I just feel like it confuses your brain and doesn't know what to do with it. But no, there are studies that show that link. So although we may be trying to be healthier, there are also is a very, that is also an epidemic. The rise and increase of Alzheimer's and dementia. So please do not go and use artificial sweeteners. If there is one thing you do today, you take away from this, throw your artificial sweeteners away in the trash. That's one of those things. There's some things that's like, oh, eat in moderation. Don't eat that in moderation. Throw it in the trash. It's not good for your brain. Okay.
Love it.
There are not too many things I feel that strongly about, but
this is one of them.
Yeah.
Bras.
Don't wear them.
And diet soda. Right?
Bras and diet soda.
X those two out. All right. So for the sake of time, let's get back to the how to manage. Right.
This was all on reading labels.
That was all.
I apologize.
Yes.
Y'all.
Let's dive back into it. So we got the reading labels. We got to find a healthy alternative.
Yes.
Now decrease your consumption gradually. Queen, can you briefly talk about how you can?
Yeah. The rest won't be as long. Those are my two. Those are two. Anyways. The reason why I put on decrease your consumption gradually is because sugar, think of it as a drug. It is basically, in terms of your body, it releases chemicals similar to the ones that are released when folks consume drugs or when folks use drugs. So when you consume something sweet, it releases dopamine. So that's why you get that like, this is so good, right? And along with the fact that societally we use sweet things as rewards. So now your body and your mind are literally trained to think sweetness is a reward, right? And your body gets used to this, right? And it expects it. And so just like if you drink coffee every day and all of a sudden you stop, you're going to have some withdrawals. Yes, you're going to start to notice like your little energy and things like that. So I don't necessarily recommend that tomorrow, aside from the artificial sweeteners, that you stop consuming all sugar, because your body is going to feel that. So, find a healthy replacement and just gradually start changing some of the things. In the morning, your coffee, rather than using white sugar, use some monk fruit, use some stevia, right? Start there, see how that feels, then move on to lunch, then move on to the next meal, and just do it gradually rather than an overhaul, because you will experience some withdrawal symptoms from just stopping sugar altogether. And this is assuming you're, again, eating the kind of the standard diet where a lot of these things are hidden. That's really the main thing I wanted to cover there.
Well done. Quick and easy. All right. There's two more, I believe, on the graphic. So next is balance your fruits and veggies.
Balance your fruits with veggies and other nutrients. And the reason why I'm saying this is because, unfortunately, I feel like when we're trying to eat healthy, a lot of us go to like either some smoothies or smoothie bowls. That's a really big thing right now, right? The acai bowls and things like that. But unfortunately, when we're trying to be healthy, sometimes we fall into the traps of still eating something that is not necessarily conducive for our body. So what I mean is, if you're going to drink a smoothie, make sure you're adding in some spinach into your smoothie, right? And maybe instead of adding, some sweetened orange juice as the liquid, use water or use a nut milk, because again, you don't want to overload any forms of those sugar. When I mentioned the glucose, the fructose, the sucrose, all of them are bad in excess. So you don't want to overload on fructose when you have you've got the smoothie at the bottom, and then you've got the fresh fruit on top, and now we're putting sweetened granola on top, and now we're putting a scoop of peanut butter, and now we're drizzling honey on top, and now we're putting on some shaved sweetened coconut. It's just a sugar overload, and now it's a dessert. Okay, so just be careful, balance it. Put some chia pudding that's not sweetened on there. Add some superfood concentrate powder to the actual smoothie. Again, it just helps balance what's happening. Adding other nutrients in with the sugar helps the body, helps that slow burn. But if it's just all sugar, your body's gonna go haywire because it's an overload. All right, and that's basically that.
Sounds good. And last but not least, one of the simplest but maybe hardest thing to do. Queen, what is it?
And we're not even there yet, but we will be. And that's don't keep table sugar in the house. So again, we add a lot of sugar to things that don't need it. And this is more for once you found your healthy alternative. So we've found multiple healthy alternatives that we like. I really haven't touched that bag of sugar. It sits in the top of the cabinet, and I haven't touched it in, a couple months, right? Because I don't need it. I use alternatives. So there's really no point in me even having it in the house as a temptation. I would only use it if I literally had nothing else in the house. But yeah, if once you find your alternative and you've got that, I would say, don't even buy more sugar for the house. You don't need it. Because again, if you think about the things we add sugar to, those are probably things you can find healthier replacements for altogether, right? We don't need and this is, I'm not saying this as a stereotype. I'm saying this because we both probably drank Kool-Aid growing up, right? We don't need the Kool-Aid with the added sugar. Like drink some water.
Even the Crystal Light, like we switched over to Crystal Light. When we started making a little money, we thought we was doing some things, so we was like, oh, let's get some Crystal Light. Still sugar,
right.
Still sugar in that thing.
So yes, just don't even keep that white sugar in the house. Again, once you find your alternatives. For baking, you can use these alternatives for anything, right? Pancakes, cupcakes, cakes, right? The monk fruit that we have, our bag from Costco, it literally looks just like sugar. So you can put that in your little jar. You will never know the difference. It is a 1-to-1 replacement. And now you've made a very small, that's such a small thing, a small step that could really change, your life and your family's lives.
Especially because psychologically, I know, like Grandy growing up, she had the jars,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's like you don't have the what's it called, the regular sugar bag. You empty the sugar bag into this jar, and then you just scoop from there. So to your point, if you're literally filling that new jar with something that you still believe and think is sugar and does what sugar does, but doesn't affect your body, yeah, that's like a almost immediate change that you can do and isn't too psychologically difficult,
right,
because it's not a huge change.
Right.
Well done. I like that.
And before we close out, I wanted to find a way to bring this up, but I forgot. But I wanted to talk about coffee in the morning, because I think that is where a lot of people consume their first bit of sugar in a day. And for a lot of folks, we're consuming dessert for breakfast as the first thing we consume in the morning is dessert, because we go to Starbucks, we get our vanilla latte.
Is that what we do?
I mean, for a lot of we know, we see the lines at Starbucks from 5 a.m. all the way until 3 a.m. and I have numbers. That's what I'm pulling up. A vanilla latte, a grande vanilla latte at Starbucks, 35 grams of sugar. Do you remember the numbers I said earlier? The recommended consumption of sugar in a day is 24 grams for a woman and 36 grams for a man. You're already setting yourself up for failure. If that is the first thing you consume, you've already hit your limit. You've already exceeded your limit.
Added caramel you may put in there,
right?
The whipped cream you get on it. Like, there's more stuff that I know folks adding to it.
Right. So just be cognizant with if there's one thing, that's a very small first step. So if we're talking about like a tangible step that you can walk away with, find an alternative sweetener. And if you add sugar to your coffee, do that, because overloading your body with sugar in the morning is really not good. So find your alternative, use it in your coffee instead. That's a very good first step to see how you feel. Because that was one of the first things you were probably giving your body in the morning. Now altering that, you're probably going to notice a difference throughout the day. Again, keep in mind, you may experience some withdrawal symptoms, but that's just your body trying to get used to not consuming that much sugar. It's your body trying to get rid of, some of the toxins you have built up. So keep it going, right? Just keep it going, and they'll be temporary. Keep it going. But that's a test. That's a test. Next week, find an alternative. Go find some stevia, some monk fruit, some date syrup, something like that. Use it in your coffee instead and see how you feel.
Boom. Love the tangible steps. There it is. Your keys to living the sweet life with as little sugar as possible, and no added sugar, and no artificial sweeteners. Thank you, Queen. So now last tidbit is our nice little weekly check-ins, weekly updates. Queen, how you doing? How you feeling? How you living?
Living pretty good. I feel pretty good. I feel like this week was a relatively chill week. There wasn't too much going on, so it kind of allowed me to be more productive and catch up on things that have been accumulating on my to-do list. So I feel good in terms of I feel like I've got stuff done this week. But yeah, nothing too crazy. Feeling pretty good.
Doing good. Okay. Yeah. And product that you have available for folks to get if they're trying to live their best life, health, wealth, all that good stuff.
We've got our 7 smoothies to live your best life. So when we mentioned smoothies on here, I was very cognizant about not making all fruit smoothies, right? So every single smoothie has kale or spinach mixed in there, got nuts and seeds and good fats. So these are not smoothies that you're going to get out of Jamba Juice or Juice It Up with extra sherbet and all the, again, added sugar. These are all natural, really good, healthy smoothies that will give you energy. You will feel the difference when you consume them. So go grab your ebook. It is $4.99 right now. And then also the 4-week intermittent fasting plan. So we mentioned, fasting is a good way to make sure that you kind of give your body that time, that time to use your stored body fat and your stored glucose. So if you're not really sure where to start, the 4-week intermittent fasting plan is a great place to start. So I believe it's $9.99 right now. Go check that out. It kind of breaks down of how to build your fasting schedule, as well as some exercises to do during those 4 weeks, so that you can really get those maximum benefits.
Boom. Shout out to the Hawkins family that just purchased their intermittent fasting plan and smoothie book this morning. We appreciate you. Shout out to Queen Turner, who's currently on vacation, but she also purchased her 7 smoothies and intermittent fasting plan last week. So well done. You're doing your thing, getting it out there. For me, it was a week for me. So I think one of the big highs was Black Wall Street, the board game, was on Master P reviews.
Yes.
Right? Which was dope. I'm not gonna get into the full story, but yeah, go to playblackwallstreet.com.
Huh? I was just gonna say they gave it a really good rating. So
They did give it a good rating. They gave us a 9, and I'll take that. The Masterpiece edition is an 11.
For
sure. For sure. So we need to get that version to them. But go ahead and go to Master P Reviews. It's on YouTube. You can check that out. And it's a nice little 7-minute video. They talk about the history and then they also review the product. So that was a good high. But in my opinion, that high also came with a little bit of a low, a little bit of a stressor, because I feel like people think because you got your product to Master P that you just balling.
Right.
Out of nowhere. Right. And that wasn't the case. Like, one, we didn't pay to get it on there. So we don't have the funds to, pay for a Master P commercial. It was literally anyone can send their product in and they'll choose who to do it. And then number 2, just because he reviews it doesn't mean he's now a part owner.
Right.
Doesn't mean he ordered 1,000 board games. Like, it literally, he just got the game, reviewed it, gave us a good review, and now it gives us more visibility. But there was tons of people that were just like, oh man, y'all made it now. Oh, you got it. Oh, dang, y'all big like that. Blah, 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 blah. People, yeah. So there was just like a no. Hold on now. Right. We're in the same position we were in before. Right. Ain't nothing changed. The money's not flowing any different. It's just, it definitely gave a lot more visibility to our brand and gave us some more traffic. So huge shout out and appreciation to Percy Miller, Master P, and the whole Master P Reviews team. Second thing that I'm currently struggling with, Queen, and it's kind of a 2-parter.
Sure.
Right? So the first part is, I think I'm growing into my value as an entrepreneur, which is good. But I think it also, like with the Master P Reviews and other things, other people also see me as a value entrepreneur. So they'll reach out and be like, oh, I got questions about this, or, oh, can you help me with this? Oh, can you do this? And the more quote unquote success that we get as entrepreneurs, I think the more people reach out for that entrepreneurship help, which then gives me less time to do the stuff that I want to do. Gotcha. Right. So, for the folks out there listening, no disrespect if I start saying no to some things. It's just, I'm trying to be very strategic and intentional with my time, so I can't necessarily answer all the questions. Like, I was helping somebody do a resume. And then this is my brother, not my brother. This is not Demetrius, but this is like one of my brothers. So I wanted to help him out, and we got to a good stage in his resume right now. But I reviewed it once, gave him a good, dude, fix these things. He sent it back. I was like, okay, cool, fix these things. And I was like, this will be my last review. Like, I'm not, like, that's not my job to review resumes, but I appreciate him coming to me as a source of information. But I feel like the more people see you as a source, the more people want to use you as a source. So then your time just dwindles down. So that's one thing. Number 2 thing that I'm struggling with. We don't have an insurance bucket out here, so I'm trying to tiptoe. But again, I feel like people see a certain level of success and assume that there's a certain level of resources and money with it. And now they may try to start charging those prices. Right. And it's like, no, we're still a startup. We're still a family owned company trying to grow. So as friends reach out and they trying to partner, as outside people reach out and they want to partner or lend their talents or whatever it is, for specifically like friends, y'all know I rock with friends heavy, rock with family heavy. But when friends and family start trying to tax heavy, it's like, all right, like we're not necessarily in that position to be able to work with all of our friends, but also give out that type of money to all of our friends.
Right. We go broke supporting all our friends.
Right. And y'all know I try heavy to support as many people as we can, but there again reaches a certain point business wise where it's like your friend or your family member might not be the best person if they're trying to charge professional prices, but might not be giving the same professional services. Right. So again, no shades anyone out there, but if I start saying no to some things, that's just what it is. Now that we're trying to be business people and people see us as business people, I feel like we need to start making those business decisions and not only like trying to help family, but also trying to make sure we're making the best decisions for us and for the business as well. So that's been another thing that I've been kind of struggling with this week. It's been an up and down week, y'all. This is the valleys and mountains of entrepreneurship.
Yep.
It's an emotional, financial, social, spiritual roller coaster all in this. But say all that to say, it's Juneteenth.
Yes.
Use code Juneteenth to get 20% off the entire Play Black Wall Street website.
The whole website.
The whole website. All right. So whether you want to get a board game, you want to get a t-shirt, we got courses on there. Some of the Queen's health empowerment stuff is also on the Play Black Wall Street website. 20% off the entire site today. Go ahead, get to it. Code Juneteenth. All right. Appreciate you. Queen, anything you want to sprinkle on that before we head out?
No.
Good to go?
Good to go.
Cool. Well, as usual, folks, we appreciate y'all for tuning in to the amazing and impactful episode of the True Health Forever podcast, where we try to live our best life through the lens of holistic health. What did you do? What happened, Sinclair? I'm your host, Devon Truvel, creator of Black Wall Street, the board game.
I'm Sinclair, a.k.a. the Health Nerd.
We hope y'all stay healthy. We hope y'all stay mentally wealthy. And of course, we hope y'all stay true.